Hey everyone, this is Max from Cooking with Unity. Notice I've got the Max cam going on, so it should be reminiscent of the first episode. So first off, I want to apologize. My server monitor is over on the left-hand side here, so if you see me looking off the camera, that's why. I'm just keeping an eye on things. So, first of all, let's talk about why I'm not doing a normal episode this week. Hold on, sorry, just getting some stuff organized here. Alright, so I'm not sure if you guys tuned in last week, but if you did, you may have noticed that I had some technical issues. Namely, I only had half an episode. It's been deleted from Justin TV. I do have a backup of it, but I'm probably not going to be putting it on anything other than media later as just a novelty. I'm going to be redoing the episode next week. The reason I didn't do it this week is because I'm still trying to get my computer into a full working order. Here, let me switch to my desktop real quick. You'll notice I don't have a nice little Tron background like I usually do, and that's because this is a fresh install of Lion. So, first off, what happened last week was I used... Let me see if I can switch this so you can see the screen. So this is my production screen here. And the preview is going to do the little Hall of Mirrors thing. But I've got... this is all the software I run for Cooking with Unity. This is Cam Twist, which allows me to switch between cameras and have my desktop broadcast. And then I've got Flash Media Live Encoder back here, which is what actually sends it over to Justin.tv. And then I've got my line in, which helps redirect the audio. I also use Soundflower and Soundflower Bed to get that going. And what had happened was, halfway through the last episode, Cam Twist crashed. And I traced the source of the crash, or at least a portion of the crash, to Mountain Lion. I had done an upgrade the previous week, and it was not ready for at least what I do. I didn't have... I had some... Obviously, I had major enough issues that I had to go back to Lion. This is actually Lion that I'm running now. But yeah, there were just too many problems with my stuff. So it would keep crashing. I'd get disconnected. Let me switch back to the camera. It really... First of all, losing that half episode hit me really hard. It's the first time I've actually legitimately lost portions of what I've broadcast. And so there was that first time aspect, and then there's also the fact that I was having a really good day on Monday. I got up on the right side of the bed or whatever, and had a great day at work, and I was prepped for my show, and I had a request from one of my viewers to do AI, so I was focusing on AI, and I was like, okay, this will be great, and I can throw it into this episode and give some idea of how to make things work. And so I felt like it was a killer episode. Like, I mean, my stuff's not the greatest stuff in the world, but sometimes I feel really good about an ep, and I did feel really good about that one. And half of it didn't record. Speaking of not recording, there we go. Okay. As I said, I'm keeping a close eye on this monitor because if this thing is going to break on me, then I don't know what to do at this point. I was doing well in my tests, but I didn't do an extended test, so we'll see how this hour actually goes, if I even have enough to talk about for an hour. But yeah, so the reason I didn't do a regular episode is because my computer's not in a correct state. I have Time Machine, and I tried to get... I tried to restore back to Lion, and I did this on Friday, and it was a 30-hour process, and unfortunately at 95% of the process, and this is in Saturday night now, 95% of the way through, my circuit breaker tripped, and it cut out in the middle and ruined the whole process. So on Sunday, I was planning on actually redoing episode 19 before today because I didn't want to miss an episode. I really didn't want that to happen, and it did. But I didn't have another choice. So on Sunday, in order to try and get something working, I did a couple test videos on Mountain Lion because I had a friend who had a copy already on a one of these type of things, a little USB stick type thing. Why is this stopping like that? Whatever. I don't care at this point. So he already had Mountain Lion on. I'm like, okay, maybe it's a fresh install issue. Maybe it was because I had all this legacy BS. And no, unfortunately, Mountain Lion just hates Flash Live Media Encoder and Cam Twist, both individually and as a group. So on Sunday, I ended up doing a reformat to Lion. I still haven't had time to just restore, and I actually have. I'm going to switch back to my desktop real quick. I actually have it dual booting now. This is my Lion partition, and my this is my Mountain Lion partition, and I'm just basically gonna. I've got litmus tests for it now. I've got one thing that I know is broken. So in Lion, you can assign a window to a space by bringing up this menu here and just choose assign to all desktops. This desktop none. And I need the all desktops thing because if I go over... So, again, this is the recording stuff. So, I do a lot of switching tabs here. Not switching tabs, what is it called? Spaces. I'm switching spaces. Now, the thing is, when you switch spaces, it switches it on both monitors. And so I need the ability to assign things to multiple monitors, to all desktops, because if you look at my other screen, which I can switch to like this, these things are on the screen so I can monitor the broadcast, and if I switch, you'll see they disappear for a second, but then they come back. If they aren't assigned to all desktops, that won't happen, so I'll only know what's going on when I'm on one of the desktops, and so I need that feature. And that feature works on a lot of the Apple software on Mountain Lion, but for whatever reason, going back to the main screen here, for whatever reason, it's not showing up in this menu for Cam Twist, for Flash Media Encoder, and for Line In. Line In wasn't a big deal, but the other two, big deal. And so that alone is a reason for me not to use Mountain Lion until that's fixed. So I'm just going to leave it installed on a separate partition, and eventually I'll be able to find out that they fixed that. And once they fix that, then I'll start seeing if they fixed all the other compatibility issues that I'm having. So what we're doing today is kind of an interview, kind of mock interview type thing. I just wrote some questions for myself, just to give you guys an idea of where I'm from and where this show is coming from and where this show is going, and why I made it in the first place. And then after I get bored with that, this will be well after you get bored with that, of course. But once I get bored with that, I will probably switch over to Solar Jetman, because I was playing that this weekend, and it made my weekend great, even though I was wrestling with computers the whole time. So... and it's an old game, and I'm sure some of you have played it. I played it as a kid, but never beat level 2, and I got to like level 6, and I think I can beat the game now. I just hadn't seen it with a fresh pair of eyes, and it's a much better game than I thought, because there were so many features that I found while playing that I didn't even know were in the game. So, I do say a lot. I swear I am going to go to a class at some point once I can get the money scrounged together to some sort of speaking or voice training class, so that I do better with this stuff. I actually think I've gotten a little bit better just from the practice, but yeah. So I'm gonna pull up my iPad real quick and see what we got going on here. So what happened last week? I already talked about that. How did Cooking with Unity start? So I've been told by people that I'm good at teaching things. I have to take their word for it, because I don't know. Like, I just show people things, and it helps them. I'm much more of a tutor than a teacher. Like, I don't think I could do a lecture hall. I don't think I could teach multiple people. But what's nice about videos is I can kind of do them at my own pace. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I had done some tutoring for a couple of my friends for making video games. Basically, I just wanted to get more people interested in programming and kind of get a group together. And so it started as just like one of my friends. I was just showing him how to do stuff, and a few other friends at work started joining in, and eventually this became a weekly thing that we call programming night, and sometimes programming nights. But it's we have it on Wednesday nights, and it's one of the things I do to keep busy. I'm just constantly busy, honestly. But we just get together, talk about games, talk about work, and either work on projects or show off projects or whatever. It's a little social thing, and that's still going on. But earlier this year, I was like, people keep saying I'm okay with teaching, so maybe I should just start a webcast. And actually, let's roll back a little bit further. Last year, I was trying to figure out how to market my apps, and I'm going to level with you guys. Like, the reason, the ulterior motive of this show is to make people aware of my products, and it's probably not the best venue for that because as it's a tutorial show, the only people who are interested in it are people who are trying to make their own products, and that's okay. I mean, I just wanted something. And so last year I was actually considering doing like a magazine or something, where like something on iPad / on the PC / whatever, kind of an interactive magazine that's devoted to indie gaming. And I wanted to create that so that I could advertise through it and use it as a product placement, but I also wanted to open it up, and I wanted it to be a good magazine. Like, I don't, like, with Cooking with Unity as well, I want it to be a great show. I do the show for me. Well, specifically, I do the show for myself when I was 14 to 18 years old and I had no idea where to start on programming. I target this at me from then. And just things that I think would be helpful to know. And I wish Unity had been out then. Like, at the time, the closest thing was like HyperCard, and it was good, mind you, but it's worlds different than Unity. Unity has completely changed the playing field, I think, for independent developers, and it certainly had for me. Like, there are all these projects that I'm sorry about the video screwing up like that. But there are all these projects that Cooking with Unity. I completely lost my train of thought. So anyway, magazine. Earlier this year, I was like, I came up with the term Cooking with Unity and registered the website, and I was like, I could do a tutorial show, and I could do it like a cooking show. And ironically, like, I had named it wrong because I don't really do it like a cooking show. Most cooking shows, they cook all of the things ahead of time, and they have them in all the various states so you can see how it works. I really do this just on the fly. I don't have time to actually set up an episode. I just go at it. And it's nice. So what was really more like... Sorry about scratching my nose. What is really more like is more like a painting show. It's more like a Bob Ross thing, because Bob Ross has a general idea of the painting he's going to make, but I doubt that he goes out of his way to make that painting ahead of time. Like, I think he just has the idea, and then he does it in front of the camera. And that's kind of I'm not comparing myself to Bob Ross. Like, well, I mean, like, there's a comparison there, but I mean, I'm still very new at this, and the other thing is, I get complaints occasionally from people who are like, "Man, it doesn't seem like you know much about Unity." I don't. I do not know. I'm not a pro. Well, I am a pro, but not an expert. I'm learning more about it all the time. I use it for my own projects, and that's where the knowledge I learn from my projects I put into this show. And then additionally, I sometimes learn from my own episodes. Like, I do that on camera because I think part of what keeps people from learning programming is they think they're bad at it. And I'm serious about this. Like, of course you're bad at it when you start because you're starting. But people, even when they get good at it, they don't notice because they think that the pros never use the internet or never look anything up, or they just know exactly what to type, and they don't. They're just like you and me. And actually, with the internet, everyone's gotten lazy. Like, everyone, I know people who just forgot various pieces of knowledge when the internet became more useful. Specifically, actually, the hardest thing now is interviews because the old process was, to interview people with questions on how do you write, like, matrix library, or how do you handle vector math, or you have a scenario that needs a cross product, and you have to come up with cross product and stuff, and how to implement a cross product. Most people I know don't memorize this stuff unless they are going to an interview, and then they just cram and forget it immediately after that because you can look it all up. And that's what I want to show. I want to show that the world is out there for you to learn anything. I mean, it's not just Unity, it's anything you can learn out there. But it's super easy to learn how to program things just by working your way through it. And don't get discouraged. People will tell you things are the wrong way even when they work. And I think that's overly cautious. That's what I'm going to call it, overly cautious. There are so many people out there that are worried that people will learn one way to do something that's not very efficient, and then they will be ill-suited to work in this world because they made that little mistake. And that doesn't matter. Like, if you make a project and it works, just go with that. I mean, you made a project and it worked. And on the next project, if you find out that there's a better way of doing it, or someone's like, you probably shouldn't do it that way, do it this way, try it, of course. But if it's not hurting your current project, just get it working. That's all that matters. And the appropriate ways to do things you'll learn them over time. You'll learn everything over time. And the big thing is just to do some projects. That's another reason why this is a projects-oriented show. I don't just show you, like, occasionally I do episodes where I go into kind of details on how certain systems works, but most of it's projects. And projects people understand, and if you just keep making things, like I feel bad for people who start on their dream project. No one should do this. Like, no artist starts on their perfect work. They don't just start painting the Sistine Chapel from nothing. No one does that. They know they can do it before they can do it, or they know they can learn what they need to learn to do it. And as a matter of fact, that's key. Always try and make a project that's slightly above your ability, because you'll grow into the project. But if you start off with like an MMO, massively multiplayer, persistent online universe game as your main game concept, stop. Just pull back a little bit. Make a Pong game. Make something simple. Make a few things simple. And just keep adding complexity and keep making things. And if you don't like making the little games, you aren't going to like making the big games. I guarantee it. Just take that as a sign. But if you do, and I think you will, most people will, when they get into the role and they get their first project and they put it on the internet and people are like, oh, hey, that's really cool. How did you do this? And you're like, oh, I figured that out by doing this, you know? And you'll get really excited and you'll get really into it. And so I have managed to go completely off tangent of the original subject, but you get my idea. So anyway, long story short, I picked a Monday. I started the show, and my goal was to every Monday do a show. And I've actually been keeping it to the 8 o'clock for the most part, with the exception of one episode, which I had to delay 2 hours, and then last week's episode was just technical issue, killed it, just ate it. And so that's my first missing episode, and so that's kind of why I was so frustrated about it. So what else do we got here? That about covers that. How did you get into video games? I'm sure no one's still watching at this point. So my first game that I ever played was Star Ranger for the Commodore 64, actually. Let me see if I can pull up a video real quick for that. Star Ranger C64. I love the internet. So yeah, perfect. If any of you guys saw my test videos earlier, this is why I was testing. I wanted to make sure I could like play YouTube videos. I'm hopefully I just want you guys to see where I started. I had a Commodore 64 when I was 2, actually, and people may say that that's pretty spoiled, and that's probably right. Hold on, let me get the sound going. Yeah, there we go. So it's just this little side-scrolling shooter thing, and yeah, I think it's because I'm streaming that it's having trouble with YouTube videos. But and this guy's terrible at playing this. So one of the things, I'm not sure they're going to show this in the video, but there's this little. You can see the thrusters when you thrust forward. One of the details I love in this game is those thrusters will kill the enemies. So you can actually like move your craft near an enemy and then boost away from them and kill them with it. And that kind of stuck with me. There were little details in games that it's not as common to see that these days. Like the problem is you need kind of really complete systems in games these days. Like people, if there's bugs, people call it buggy now, as opposed to back in the day, like you would just throw stuff in there, and if there was a bug, no one worried about it. No one even knew what a bug was, and most people would just think it's part of the game or something. And I don't know if most people would think that, but I mean, I was a little kid at the time, so anyway, how I started with the reason I had a Commodore at 2 is because my mom was talking to some other parents or something, and they had an Apple II or a computer for their kids, and they were using it. And my mom had no idea what computers were. This was 84. And the thing is, like, my dad knew that computers were kind of the future, but he didn't really know what to do with them either, and like most parents. But my mom came back from this, and my dad didn't like to spend money, but my mom just told him, we have to get Max a computer, otherwise he's going to be behind everyone else out there. Like she was very competitive, I guess. But it encouraged him to allow her to get a computer, and my mom got me a Commodore 64 for like $200, and great system. I had it for years, and just love that thing. But that's kind of how I got my start, and Commodore had BASIC in it. Commodore BASIC. So you could actually kind of program on your own, although I didn't actually learn programming from this, ironically. Unfortunately, I'm going to tell this story. I should never tell this story, but I'm going to. When I first started learning to program...
Here, and I welcome you to
this guy's going to talk.
Commodore Basic.
We don't need him to talk. So this is what the basic screen looks like, but you could run commands and stuff, and like just loading a game was load... quote star quote comma 8 comma 1 and then run, and then you'd get a game or whatever you had on your disk drive. So this is what the main screen looked like. It had full 64K of RAM, yeah. And but what I shouldn't tell people, and I'm going to, is I had a book on how to learn BASIC. I think it was actually just a Commodore instruction manual. But one of the first lessons is Hello World, where it's print Hello World. Done. That's it. That's the whole program. And I didn't do it because I didn't want to print something on my printer. Yeah. So that's 6 years wasted. But yeah, honestly, it set me back pretty bad. You know, kids aren't persistent. Kids will just. This was when I was like 6 or 7, and I just, lost interest and didn't try. My goal originally was to remake. This is gonna sound stupid. I wanted to remake. Everyone just wants to remake games. I knew I couldn't do the graphics like this, but I wanted to do G-Lock on the C64, and I wanted to super simplify it. But here we go. G-Lock Air Battle. Let's see how this goes on the video. But yeah, I basically just wanted to do the lock-on system from G-Lock. So just like little sprites or something on the screen, and you lock onto them and fire. Why is it so bad? I'm just going to let that stream for a little bit. But, so I wanted to remake this game for Commodore 64, and that's actually what I started going into, and I didn't get far at all. I got to 10, print, Hello World, and failed. So anyone can get stuck and just go away for a while. But I did still want to make games, and I was in Bend, so there wasn't a lot of opportunities to learn. I live in Bend, Oregon. And it's bigger now than it used to be, but they still don't have great. They have a community college here, but all they offered was Java. And in retrospect, I should have taken that Java class. It would have really helped me out, but I didn't, because I wanted to make video games, and I knew video games were written in C and C++. And I had heard Java was slow, and people still use that to this day, which, yes, it's slower than compiled languages in most cases, but computers are so fast it doesn't matter anymore. But I mean, like, back when it mattered, it didn't even matter as much as people say that it did. But I wanted to learn the quote-unquote low-level stuff. And I actually wanted to learn assembly, too, at the time. And I learned a little bit of that, and I don't want to touch that ever again. But yeah, so here's G-Lock. This is the little game. I didn't want to do any of the 3D stuff. I just wanted sprites coming in, maybe like 3 different sizes of sprites or something, and then you lock onto them and blow them up. Actually, it was... in my mind, it looked something more like Whirlybird. Water sports. Yeah, no video on that one. But it was just a little helicopter shooter thing where just little tiny helicopters and you had guns and you shot at them. Kind of first person, but, you know, very, very simple graphics. You'll have to take my word for it on that one. So yeah, so I got sidetracked because of that, and so I didn't do the Java thing. I had learned, I'd done a few games on HyperCard, and HyperCard was, actually, Myst was made in HyperCard, a highly modified, very high-end HyperCard, but yeah, it was HyperCard, and it just was a concept of stacks, and you'd make things. And actually, I'm probably going to show HyperCard at some point on some episode. But yeah, it was a cool little learning experience. And what else? So I didn't really get into programming proper until, I mean, I'd done a lot of dabbling, but I didn't really get into it until I went to Digipen, and yeah, Digipen was a good school. I really liked that place. And actually it emulated, the projects class emulated the actual real world better than it had any right to. It's kind of scarily accurate, actually. All the little problems that I thought were just, you know, schoolmate issues were actually human issues. Yes, people still act like they're in college. Actually, most people act like they're in grade school, even in the workplace. But I went there for a couple years. I didn't actually graduate. I went there as a vocation. I just wanted to learn the stuff. Like, I didn't care what my grades were. I didn't care what I did. I did good grades for the first year. But then what happened was I met up with a couple friends, and we started a company, and it was called Cubic Sky Interactive. I think my friend Steve Martin still has the domain name and stuff, so there might be something there. But I certainly wasn't ready to start a company, and if Will Pratt and Steve Martin out there, if you guys are out there, I apologize that I was a slacker, because I was, and I apologize I didn't get the business stuff working, but it was a great learning experience. And actually, the thing I ended up doing the most on there wasn't programming. It was talking to publishers and finding publishers and stuff, and it was hard. Like you have to understand, like people really complain a lot about the Apple 70-30 split and the Android 70-30 split. They're like, they take 30% and they give you nothing basically, and they just publish you, and you have to pay $100 a year on the Apple one, and those people have no idea how hard it was before that. If you wanted to get a project out, you needed a publisher, and you needed to find a publisher that wanted your project, and you couldn't just come to a publisher as like, I have an idea, give me money. People would try that, and occasionally, if you had a really, really great idea and you had like tons of documentation, you might be able to get away with that. Most of the time, they wanted to see a demo, and that's what we were working on, was a demo for a racing game, and the thing is, like, we were 3 programmers basically. We didn't have any artists, and we had done some small amounts of contract art through some people, but we didn't really have any money to do that either. And so what happens is, even if you have a really good game idea, like, you can have a good game that has bad graphics. That's fine. Like, you can sell a good game with bad graphics. It may not sell as well as it would if it had great graphics, but it's fine. If you have a terrible game with great graphics, it will not sell. Ever. Now, the problem with this is the publishers, the guys that you talk to, aren't really into video games. They're into money. And that's fine. That's what they're there for. Their risk management is what they are. They're trying to find heavy hitters that they can make money off of. And so they care about graphics way more than regular people do. And so when you have 3 programmers working on a project, they're just going to be like, they're going to look at it and be like, yeah, it doesn't look good enough. This isn't going to fly. And so we never got published, and we didn't want to try to do the self-publishing route. We didn't even know where to start with that. So we kind of broke up, and I moved back to Bend. But after that, I got a job. I don't know if I want to say. I'll say with who. Yeah, Sony. I work at Sony. Sony Bend, actually. Worked on the Uncharted UGA game, and that's my day job. And I like it there. It's really good, and I actually like Sony as a whole. I have the same complaints anyone else does about decisions they make, but I want you guys to know right now, like, any group of humans, especially large groups like corporations, but any group of humans there's this layer of bureaucracy, and there's all these decisions that go into a single thing. And anytime you see like a major glaring issue with a PlayStation or the Wii or Microsoft's products, it's the result of so many little decisions around the issue, and they just miss it. That's what happens. Like, anytime they're like, how could anyone miss this? It's totally possible. You can totally miss things because you just have this wide enough berth that you just can push through, get a product out there, and not realize things you could have done to make that product better. But yeah, I like it at Sony, and I need that job too. I mean, like, I basically am working like 3 or 4 jobs right now at any given time, but I'm working there. I consider cooking with Unity a job, although it's more of a passion at this point. I've got my own little game projects. Pushy Pixels is my company, and then I occasionally do contract work. And I still can't make ends meet. But hopefully that'll change at some point. But if it doesn't, whatever. I enjoy doing all this stuff. If I can just keep afloat, that's all I need. Where are we at? 30 minutes. I actually managed to BS for 30 minutes. Well, that's better than I thought I was going to do. I used to, still kind of do. Everyone's a little bit afraid of public speaking, but I used to be really bad about it. And actually, the first couple episodes were really hard for me. I don't mind it as much. A lot of times I do want to do longer intros where I talk about different things that I've been working on or just talk about gaming in general. And every time I do, I get a little embarrassed and just don't do it. And actually, that's probably good for the show because the number one complaint I usually hear about people who are doing tutorial stuff is like, just get to the content. I mean, they're just going to skip all that stuff anyway. They're just going to fast forward right past it. All right, so yeah, that's basically my history. Oh yeah, and Sony. I started as a tester, and now I'm a production assistant, which basically means I do a little bit of everything. But I still want to become a programmer. I've been there 9 years, so obviously something's wrong with me as far as the programmer thing goes. But so I'm gonna. Should I do this one? Yeah. Let's throw some opinion on the show so everyone leaves. What's your favorite game of all time? I wrote this question down for me. I don't know why I would do that. All right, so note, I said favorite. This by no means greatest game of all time. I do not think I am qualified to choose a greatest game of all time. So I know a lot of games, and I can pick some stuff that I think should be high on the list, but this is a completely separate list. This is favorite game of all time. And right now, it's the current reigning champion is a very recent game, actually, Asura's Wrath. I love Asura's Wrath. Basically, kind of a Japanese take of God of War. Let me pull up a video real quick. You guys may have seen this before. Asura's Wrath. And again, in case I didn't touch on this earlier, I think I did, but the reason I'm not doing a regular episode right now is because I don't trust my computer, and it's not completely set up yet. So that's the reason that you're hearing me drone on and on about this stuff. I don't want the announcement. I just want a good trailer for it. Announcement trailer's good enough, even though it shows some stuff that's not in the final game. Come on. And actually, I'll just have this buffer for a while. But yeah, my current favorite is Asura's Wrath, and people criticize this game because it has a lot of QuickTime events, and people tend to hate QuickTime events. But it has such wonderful presentation, and it's a really good story, and it's really well acted, and presentation. I love the story, and the gameplay that's there is really fun. Like people complain, it's like there's just too many cutscenes, too high a cutscene to gameplay ratio. I'm like, who cares about that? Like, I'm in it for the experience, and it's a great experience. I liked it so much I wasn't even put off by the DLC for it. And that's saying a lot because I'm kind of anti DLC, especially. I mean, like they did something that's pretty blatant, actually. You have to buy the end of the game. There is a good ending there without buying the full ending, but trust me, you want that ending. Like, it's incredible. And it's DLC, but it's cheaper than most DLC has been, so at least they're trying for the actual microtransaction and not just doing the EA microtransactions equals $20. But yeah, it's a really good game. Here's the trailer. I'm just going to play it. I guess this is as much as it's going to set up. Come on, play. I hope this actually looks okay on here. Okay, let's just get to the fun parts. Hold on. Whatever. This is actually stupid. I shouldn't be showing just trailers on here, especially considering my bandwidth sucks so bad that I can't download the trailer, and it's not streaming very well to you guys anyway. So, but yeah, great game. It's, as I said, God of War, but from Japan, and it's just over the top. Like, you got giant Buddhas sticking their fingers into the earth, and like they're as big as the earth, and it's amazing. And just to crush one dude, and then they fail, which is awesome. Like, you just destroy everything in that game. It's just a really great experience. So to put some perspective on this, though, like I gave you a really recent game as my favorite game. I've been keeping track of my favorite game for a while. The first game that I played where I was like, this is my favorite game of all time. Like, I'd never done this before. Like, I had games that I liked more than other games, but if you had asked me what my favorite, I wouldn't have known. But the first time I played Chrono Trigger, I was like, "This is my favorite game. This is the greatest game I've ever played." And actually, if we were talking about greatest games, this is on the list, and is high in the list for greatest game. I think Chrono Trigger is just incredible. But I loved it, and I couldn't believe it. Like every time that I thought that I was at the end of the game, I wasn't, and there was like 5 new areas, and then there's time machines, and there's all sorts of just amazing stuff that happened, and I had never seen anything like this game. And so that was my first favorite game of all time. After that, the one that dethroned that, and this is mostly due to a bias of mine. I really like dragons, and I admit that my bias is in there for my favorite game of all time here. But the next favorite game of all time was Panzer Dragoon Saga. And Panzer Dragoon Saga is a game that not enough people have played. I guess you could look for a long play of it or something. It's kind of hard to get set up because it's a Saturn game, naturally. I think they have some emulators that can run it now, but your mileage may vary on that. But if you can play this game, play it, please. It's really good, and I even came back to it recently, and it is Saturn, so the visuals are earlier generation. You guys are gonna have to, and 3D does not age well, and it's definitely the case in this game, but it's really incredible. It just has this really fleshed out world, really fun gameplay, really cool. It's a real-time / turn-based combat where you have like positioning and stuff, and it plays really good. It's not a hard game by any stretch of the imagination. It's about 10 hours long, which is, I think, a really good length for a game. That's about the time of Chrono Trigger 2. Chrono Trigger first time through might be like 16 hours or something, but like it's a tight game. Like it's not like a 64-hour or 128-hour RPG. But yeah, Panzer Dragoon Saga is pretty much 10 hours on the dot, and I like that. It's concise, but it's deep. Like they don't do a lot of side questing stuff, and it's just the story, and it's really good. And then after that, my next favorite game was Zone of the Enders 2, which until Deus Ex created their trailer, it had my vote for greatest trailer of all time for video games. Check out the trailer for Zone of the Enders 2. And actually, the HD version's coming out soon. Thank goodness. Maybe some people will actually play the sequel. A lot of people have played Zone of the Enders 1. And the reason that they did is because Hideo Kojima's pretty smart. He's a pretty smart dude. He had that packed in. It was basically a tech test. The first Zone of the Enders was a technology test for what's known as the Fox engine now, but whatever the Metal Gear Solid 2 engine was. And it was kind of developed alongside of Metal Gear Solid 2. And they packaged a demo for Metal Gear Solid 2 in Zone of the Enders. And that was so smart, because everyone bought Zone of the Enders. Like, there were very few people I knew that called themselves gamers that didn't have Zone of the Enders. And a few of them might even played it. Most of them didn't. Most of them just bought it because Metal Gear Solid 2 demo, and like that demo was incredible. Like if you weren't around when that came out, it was mind blowing. And Metal Gear Solid 2 in general is mind blowing. Although some people were put off by Raiden. And it was kind of a bait and switch, because they don't mention Raiden anywhere in the demo, and then all of a sudden, everything after the demo, you're not playing as Snake anymore. I actually liked it, because I think Snake's a more interesting character from the third person. Like he's more badass because he's kind of goofy. He's goofy badass. He's what's the best way? He's MacGyver. That's what Solid Snake is. He's MacGyver. He hides in cardboard boxes. That's loony, but it's so funny, and it's funny because it came from the 2D game, like Metal Gear 2. I actually think even Metal Gear 1 had cardboard boxes that you could hide in, and it basically just made it so you creep up on things. But I mean, it's so Warner Brothers, it's so cheesy. But so when you're playing as him, when you play any video game, you can make the person look like an idiot. You can make the character look like an idiot. As a matter of fact, I think if you watch Yahtzee's stuff, I think he's mentioned that his first thing he likes to do is to make everything look as stupid as possible, and it's totally possible because you can do whatever you want, and so when you no longer are controlling him, how did I get on this? Whatever. If you're not controlling him, if you're seeing him do his action, he's somehow more badass. Like, he gets away with doing the cardboard box thing while you're watching, and you're just like, they didn't have to show. That's hilarious. That's awesome. They show him doing the cardboard box thing, and you can, like, if you go to certain areas, you'll see Snake doing his thing and being generally more badass than you are, and just, you know, beating you down at every part of the way. So yeah, I guess we were on favorite games. I like the Metal Gear series a lot too, and actually, I think Metal Gear Solid 4 is on my top 5 list, but it never was it was never in a favorite game category because it just narrowly wasn't as good as Zone of the Enders 2 to me, as far as favorites go. I guess that covers that. Yeah, I've probably thoroughly bored my entire audience, and they'll never watch this show again. So 8:45. So what I want to show you now is I'm gonna load up an emulator. Ooh, emulator scary. And I own this game actually. I can produce proof of that if you need. But I was playing this, and actually, even though I own the game, I've been playing it on my Wii emulators because it's just convenient. But yeah, this is a Rare game. This is back when Rare kicked ass. And why did I turn that down? That doesn't help anything. So there's different levels in this game, and yeah, the music is really loud compared to me, isn't it? Is there any way I can fix that? There's sometimes when I do wish I had certain features there in Windows, like Windows has this really great audio mixer now that allows you to mix different programs, even if they don't have volume settings, which this one doesn't have any volume settings, so... Alright, well, the actual game isn't that loud, so let me get into the game real quick. So, I was playing this, and it's pretty appropriate to what we were doing before, because this is a little thruster game, like we're making in Cooking with Unity right now. I'm just gonna turn off the sound completely because I don't want to talk over it. And that didn't do anything. Oh, it did do something. Okay, I'm gonna quit this. Let's try it again. We'll go over sound design later. Once I figure out a way to, maybe there's some program I can install or something that'll allow me to get the mix. Actually, wait. Soundflower. Does this let me do anything fancy? Oh my god, it does. Let's try this. Preferences. Sorry, I should have done more research on this earlier. Alright, so let's see if this works. I'm going to set the... source headphones, built-in output. Let's go to... Oh. Whoa. What did that do? That may be okay. Testing. Hopefully this isn't lowering my volume, although it very well may be. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I don't think it's lowering my volume. Can I turn my audio preview on? Hold on. Sorry about this, guys. Nope, I can't turn on my audio preview. So, this is either better or way worse. So yeah, I can't tell if this is actually better or worse, so sorry. But yeah, so I just wanted to point out some things. So first of all, this game has kind of this pre-rendered style, which is interesting on NES, where you have the ship and it rotates, but it doesn't rotate on just a facing you axis. It actually rotates on this like off-kilter axis, and it makes it feel a lot more squirrely. And I really like that. I like that it feels squirrely. And the other thing is, you can still see exactly where you're pointed because they have this little white dot that is prominent even at the bottom of the ship. It's like a little highlight they put on there. And that little white pixel is your angel. It's your northern star. And you can just like see exactly where you're pointed, but then it has this really complex look to the game, a really smooth and fancy look to the game. So this game is, as I said, like it wouldn't take much to do something like this in Unity, although doing this style would be difficult. That being said, like the programmers who made this game had to really work their butts off. And what I mean by that is, like, you have to understand, like, we're used to working with hardware that has floating point units in it and 32-bit processors, and this is an 8-bit processor. It was lower than 1 megahertz. And, I mean, we usually have, you know, gigahertz for computers. But yeah, less than 1 megahertz, and it didn't do floating point. So they had to write a fixed point library for this game just to do the acceleration, and they probably had to have all of the acceleration curves and stuff pre-planned. It just kind of is mind-blowing to me that this is the case, because it's just sorry, I can't play and talk at the same time, I guess. But yeah, like so it starts off as kind of just a simple game, but then like you can tractor beam things and you can upgrade your ship. And it's like, this is a ship upgrade that I'm going to grab and bring it back to my base, and it's going to install on the ship. I've been really enjoying this game. Like, as I said, this game was really super hard for me as a kid. It's easier now, but it's still not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. Look, it actually had tutorial text in the game. This was not common on NES. So yeah, I've got shields now that I can turn on, and the shields are really nice because the shields absorb a hell of a lot of damage. You can't tow things with the shields on, that's the biggest trick. So you generally want to clear areas before you get to the end of them. But like, I can survive this shot. Like, if I turn this off and get shot, watch this. Bam! One hit took more than half of my life. And when you die, you become this little dude. He's lighter, so he can move around better. But he's much more fragile. He can't operate shields, and he can only shoot left and right, which is a really interesting limitation, considering you normally can shoot in any direction. So like, there's a lot of complexity to this game, and it's a really, really solid, fun game. I guess what I'm just saying is, like, if you haven't played this game or heard of this game, you should check it out. Get some ideas from it. There's been a modern game that's kind of a take on this called, it was on PlayStation, Pixel Junk Shooter, was that it? Or, it was kind of like this. No, actually, I don't think that's the one. There's one that's more like it, but I don't know. I digress. Anyway, but yeah, check this game out. I'm really not doing it justice here. And I'm just doing the thing that I hate the most in the world, talking over a video, or a game, but I'm just going to quit this. And I'm going to return this volume. I really hope that volume trick actually worked, because yeah, it'd be nice if it did. So yeah, that's about all I got. Thank you for sticking with me for the whole episode, if you did. And if you didn't, you didn't miss out on anything. So, but yeah, next week we're doing episode 19 again. I'm continuing the work. I'm pretending that I never did the episode before, and hopefully it'll come out as good or better than the first time through. And I should be back on my computer should be back on its feet by then. So we shouldn't have any problems. I really hope this video actually went through, because I hate it when I lose stuff. But yeah, so thank you for joining me with Cooking with Unity, and you guys have a great night.